I see. Well, hello, chaps and chappets, Game Chap and Bertie here.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, fellows, and I dare say we are now discussing the top 5 Super Mario games that were lost, forgotten, and otherwise never released.
Okay, so these Mario games were never released to the market at all.
That's right.
In other words, they planned them, they thought about them, they'd done something of some type on them, but they were never released, yes?
Exactly. They were actually in the development stage at some point. They existed, but for whatever reason, they were cancelled and we never saw them and were never able to play them. Now, what do we have in first off at number 5, old chap?
Well, number 5. Does anyone remember the Virtual Boy?
The Virtual Boy, yes, of
Maybe
course.
you collect it and you've got a Virtual Boy, I don't know.
Yes.
Virtual Boy...
Now, just a moment. What was the Virtual Boy, old boy?
The Virtual Boy, it was a Virtual Boy.
Yes.
I mean, you held it and it was like a Virtual Boy.
No, it was Nintendo's famously failed attempt at three-dimensional graphics in the early days, back in the 90s. It had this terrible red image that gave everyone headaches because of the way it worked, but it was 3D, so quite revolutionary. But what was the game, old chap?
It is, so they had to go at it. But yeah, Mario Land on the Virtual Boy
Right.
was planned for release, but yet it was never released. Now, there's going to be an entry in the Mario Land series, as I said, and of course, Mario would battle against Wario in the game's story.
I see.
Then he could go into the background, etc., and do all sorts of things.
Right, so Mario was going to fight Wario in this game, which was called, I understand, VB Mario Land, and as Bertie said there, he would be able to go into the background, making use of the three-dimensional technology of the Virtual Boy of the day. Now, sadly, of course, it's safe to assume this particular one went down with the ship, as the Virtual Boy famously failed due to its headache-inducing red visuals.
Well, the red visuals!
I mean, just terrible,
I'm
old
just
chap.
thinking here, though, in 3D, back then, I mean, they're trying to do 3D now, aren't they? I mean, everybody
Yes.
knows out there that they're going to have to go to 3D now because everyone's getting bored with the same old thing.
No, you mean VR, don't you?
Well, 3D VR, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I mean, VR sort of thing, yes. 3D sort of effects. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. They
Right.
were delving with it, they were sort of playing with it then, but
That's
it never
right.
came off.
They never ultimately had the right idea for it. The concept was there, but of course it was just too painful to use in those days because the technology wasn't there, you'll say.
Well, exactly. So they never... And of course, we had this red thing that you said, people presumably moaning and griping about the red screen sort of thing. I mean, you know...
Yes, of course. So ultimately, they had to call VB Mario Land a failure and they left it on the shelf, sadly. Now, of course, we move on then to number 4, Mario Takes America.
Mario Takes America. Now, for goodness sake, I mean, what platform was this supposed to be on?
Well, this was another one of those, CDI Mario games. You know the ones like Hotel Mario and that sort of thing.
What, you mean like on a disc thing?
On the Philips CDI, that's right.
CDI thing. I mean, that's in museums now, isn't it? That sort of thing.
It is, of course, but nonetheless, this game was planned, fellows, and actually, it was a CDI Mario game which would have made use of full motion video of various scenes in the United States.
Whoa, wait a minute. I mean, I've just said about the 3D, that sort of thing. Now they're playing around back then with full motion video.
Yes, of course, they did do that quite a lot back in the day, actually, wasn't it? It was quite popular at one point.
They used to do that sort of thing with, Command and Conquer and things, didn't they?
Oh yes, Command and Conquer, and of course adventure games, things like that. Now in Mario Takes America, Mario would have had to fly over New York in a helicopter, drive through a factory in Detroit, take a space shuttle ride in Florida, and more. I'm sorry if my pronunciations are wrong there, I'm not American, you'll see, but anyway.
Okay.
On his way to Hollywood, where he was going to star in his own feature film.
So Mario Takes America, he really does the whole thing out there, the flying all the rest of it, space shuttle, then goes along and says he's going to appear in a film.
Yes.
So why on earth didn't this thing ever come off?
Well, let's see now. He would have been a 2D sprite on the screen, you'll see, similar to how he looked in the TV cartoons, but a bit like the actual Super Mario Bros. Film, this game didn't do so well, you see. The producer's progress was just too slow, and Philips, who owned the CDI, eventually stopped funding the project, so it just went flat.
So, that game there could have been released, no doubt worked on, nearly released,
Yes.
Mario Takes America. Philips, whoever got fed up with it and said, look, it's taking too long, we get fed up with it, we're not doing it anymore, stopped the flow of money,
They
and
cut
that
the
was all
funding,
over.
and that was it. Perhaps the technical requirements of the project were just too demanding and too high for the Philips CDI.
Well, it may be. Too high for the CDI, could be.
Exactly. So the project, well, you'll see, it died.
It died.
Anyway, what's the next, old chap?
Right, now the next one on the list, we've already had the BB Mario Land
Yes.
and Mario Takes America on the old Philips CDI. Goodness
Yes.
me, does anyone even remember that?
Well, maybe, perhaps, I suppose
Well,
you
anyway.
do.
Now, Super Mario's Wacky Worlds. Now that sounds good to me. Super Mario's Wacky Worlds. not just one world boring, but worlds, yes.
Super Mario's
Oh, lots of.
Wacky Worlds. Interesting. Now, this
Yes.
game is quite a curious one because it was actually a planned sequel to Super Mario World on, you guessed it, the Philips CDI.
The Philips
Again.
CDI, again, goodness me, they were doing a lot with Nintendo back then, weren't they?
They really were. So this particular game, they were hoping to make this Mario game, as I said, based upon Super Mario World using the Philips CDI system. Now, a lot of the game's artwork was actually completed, you see, but the code was largely unfinished. Apparently, there's even a few prototypes of Super Mario's Wacky Worlds in existence.
Oh my word, they must be worth something.
Yes,
Prototypes
$1,000,
of
I think, old chap.
Really?
Yes,
What, on the old, whereabouts?
The old online auction flogging site, old chap, that one.
Oh, eBay?
Yes, eBay.
All right.
Anyway, of course, the game involved Mario going through various locations in the real world, hence Mario's Wacky Worlds. Of course, they were all Mario'd up, you'll see. And apparently, Nintendo really liked the project. They thought it was absolutely spiffing, but the CDI was selling so badly that Nintendo just couldn't publish it for business reasons, so it got axed.
Ah, I see. Okay, so they liked it. We were going to produce it. Maybe they thought the Philips CDI thing was going down the pan.
Yes.
So they said, well, we better pull this because if we release it, the whole thing could go down. We'll lose the game, and it looked like our game's a load of trash.
And lose the
it's
money
not.
as well.
So that's another one to take. But apparently there is, as Game Chaps said there, some copies still in existence somewhere. So,
Only a few.
It must be very rare in people's collection, things like that maybe.
I suppose so. Indeed, quite an interesting one. Super Mario's Wacky Worlds. And what's next, old chap?
Super Mario's Wacky... It's not the next, but I'm just saying, I like that. Super Mario's Wacky World. It sounds good. I wish they'd make that game now.
Yes, but the title doesn't really sound like Nintendo, does it? Super Mario's Wacky Worlds. It's more like a
Why
sort of
can't you put
spin-off.
them together? Super Mario's Wacky Worlds, and then dash Mario Takes America, VB Mario Land, etc.
Edition.
Yeah, they could add all those in,
And
squash
numbers.
them all down in the box somewhere, release it now, and they're away. I only want a small cut for the idea.
Right, yes, thank you for that, buddy. In at number 2 on our list, fellas, we have an interesting sports game. A Mario sports game, this time actually on Nintendo Wii, so quite close to home. Super Mario Spikers.
Ah, right, okay, so we've sort of travelled through time into the future now. To
That's
the Wii.
right.
Now, this is more interesting, in a way, because we sort of familiarise a bit more with it, because it's sort of more recent.
More recent, yes.
Super Mario, not Strikers.
No.
Spikers.
Obviously a play on the title Super Mario
And
Strikers.
it's sort of where he goes up and he has to avoid spikes or something, or
No,
what?
no. This was actually going to be a cross between volleyball and wrestling, which would have had themed outfits similar to Mario Strikers Charged Football.
Volleyball?
Yes,
Really?
and wrestling. So they were doing this sort of volleyball smashing and, of course, wrestling clashing, if you will.
Volleyball, a smashing, and a wrestling class. Doesn't that Dead or Alive game do that sort of thing?
Dead or alive?
Volleyball.
Anyway, there are
Maybe
various
that's why you bring it out, I
prototypes.
suppose.
There are various prototypes of Super Mario Spikers in existence, and it was originally being developed in 2007. You'll see, but Nintendo cancelled, and this is interesting. Nintendo cancelled it because it clashed with their company's code of honor.
Hey, wait a minute. First I'm thinking 2000... I was just about to comment on the 2007, thinking, well, most of us remember that. I mean, okay, I was sort of in my cot still, but I do remember it a little bit.
Yes.
And then you said that they cancelled it because Code of Honor? What sort of Code of Honor?
Well, apparently it was to do with the Japanese honor thing.
About what?
I don't know. That's the whole thing. This is why it's so mysterious. You're speechless, aren't you, old chap?
I'm trying to think. I'm just trying to put my head around that a minute. They've got a Super Mario Strikers, or Spikers, I keep saying Strikers.
Yes.
Spikers game
Yes.
about sort of volleyball and wrestling. I don't know how you put those together, but I suppose you do.
But I'm just thinking of one thing here, old boy.
Yes.
Volleyball happens on the beach, yes? And in wrestling, they don't tend to wear much, do they? So the mind can only wonder and theorise as to what Princess Peach and Daisy would have worn.
Would that clash with their Code of Honor?
Do you think so?
I don't think that would.
Well, we've
They like
never
all that sort of thing, don't they?
We've never officially seen Peach and Daisy in a sort of,
I mean, didn't they
skimpy
put a booby slide or something in Chronicles X?
bikini
And then
outfit.
they stopped it?
Have we, Bertie? We've never actually seen that, old boy.
No.
No.
No, we haven't. No.
So I think perhaps Nintendo might have said, well, this whole idea of
Yes.
this volleyball wrestling game would have to involve very skimpy outfits for the girls, and so no, we're not publishing it.
Well,
Who
it could
knows?
be. I mean, we're not saying that that's the reason that they didn't.
No.
They just didn't do it for some reason.
One possibility. I find it quite interesting, though, that they say they cancelled it due to a Japanese code of honor thing. The mind can only theorise what that might have been.
Well, maybe it was something to do with development, and the person that they wanted to or thought should have been credited couldn't be or something, and then they wouldn't do it, something like that.
Maybe they thought they were overly milking the title, the sports thing, because of course we'd only just had Mario Strikers Charged Football. Maybe they didn't want to release too many, editions of the same sort of thing.
Maybe it was too close to the other chap's idea, the Strikers Spikers thing, and he came along and said, look,
Oh,
I don't
no,
want
it was
this.
by the same company.
Yes, I know that.
Yes, by
But
next
maybe
level
two in
games.
the same company had a similar idea. I don't know.
Well, I don't know, but we can say one thing for sure, Videos, and that is that since then, Next Level Games have worked on further projects with Nintendo. They actually produced Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, so the studio is still alive and kicking. We just don't know why this particular game was axed.
Okay, so that was booted out. So those of you taking notes now, we've got Super Mario Spikers in there as well, a Wii game.
Yes.
There are some prototypes, you say?
Yes, some prototypes still in existence.
interesting.
And we're coming next to arguably the cream of the crop. This one is very interesting. In at number 1, we have the cancelled title, Super Mario 64 2.
Now, this is amazing because, Super Mario 64, I mean, was it a popular game or what sort of thing?
In the West, huge.
I mean, who hasn't heard of Super Mario 64?
Exactly.
I mean, everyone's heard of that. You could go out to somewhere in the middle of nowhere, some Aborigine land, and say Super Mario 64, and you say, yes, I know it.
Of course.
I know that,
Now,
of course.
This game,
You sort of, making the fire with their hands like they do.
Super Mario 64 2, was actually going to be a direct sequel to Super Mario 64, don't you know? It was
Yes.
planned for the Japan-only console, the Nintendo 64 DD. Now, who's heard of that?
I've heard of 64DD, yes.
Bertie, not that sort of DD. This is the Nintendo 64 DD system, which
Yes, I remember.
I believe may have stood for Disc Doctor, actually.
Yes, Doctor, yeah, I remember that. Yes,
Now-
it was a bit you stuck on top, wasn't it?
It was an accessory, if you will, but because the 64 DD didn't sell well in Japan, the Super Mario 64 2 project sadly was cancelled.
So hang on a minute.
a shame, isn't it, really?
Super Mario 64 was huge. They were going to bring out a 2, and that would have been absolutely wonderful, I think.
Yes, yes.
But because they somehow planned to put it with this 64 DD thing,
Yes.
presumably to enhance it, and it didn't sell well, they scrapped the whole thing. Well, that seems crazy. Why didn't they just, do it without it?
Well, here's some further details. Apparently, one demo level was made for Mario 64 2, but it was never actually shown in public. Now, apparently the game was going to also include Luigi for real in Mario 64 2.
Really?
Number 1, that's right.
Number one.
And the demo level was also going to be multiplayer, apparently, so perhaps the demo even included Luigi, but Mr. Miyamoto, that's Mr. Shigeru Miyamoto, said he was thinking of releasing the game on a new system altogether, so maybe some ideas from Mario 64 2 were reused and recycled in subsequent Mario games.
A new system altogether. Well, hang on. Well, how could that be? We had the Wii after that, didn't we, or something? No, the GameCube.
Well, I mean, yes, we did have the GameCube, and of course Mario 64 never was re-released on the GameCube. That had Mario Sunshine, but we did have the concept of multiplayer Mario coming back in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, didn't we?
Yes, we did, of course. Yes, that came back, but that wasn't really the same as 64 because that was sort of a moving platformy type of thing.
And I mean, also Super Mario 3D World does have multiplayer, but it's not really the same as Mario 64. It hasn't got that same level of open world exploration, if you will.
Well, no, I mean they had a crack at it with Galaxy, but it just wasn't Super Mario 64.
Well, no, Galaxy wasn't really multiplayer, was it, Oldboy?
Well, not really,
You had the sort of the two-player assist mode, but it wasn't really multiplayer. So to this day, we haven't actually ever seen a fully 3D Mario game in multiplayer. So on our list here, Super Mario 64 2 is arguably the most interesting, and I dare say for the future, possibly quite exciting entry in the list. Because who knows, they could one day make a fully 3D multiplayer Mario game. How exciting would that be, old chap?
Well, yes, exactly. Yes, it would be, and I think it might help them out. I don't know, but there you have it. I mean, 5 very interesting games that never released, but in some cases there's some prototypes going about.
Yes.
That maybe you didn't know about, but they're there, and no doubt, Nintendo. Perhaps they regret not making them. I don't know.
Well, I don't know, but I can say one thing for sure. Perhaps we've never seen a 3D multiplayer Mario game yet, because getting the camera right in that kind of environment is just really hard. I mean, if you think about it, how would the camera work, old boy?
Well, they put those clips all over their bodies, don't they, and get real people to run about, But
I mean,
you've got to find Mario for that.
If you've got 2 people on the screen at the same time, it's a fully 3D world. How does the camera work? Do you
I see.
use the bubble system, perhaps?
Oh, the old bubble system. Yes, I don't know. That's the only thing, isn't it? You see,
Does the camera follow Mario or Luigi or both?
That's a good point. Or it just stops when you get to the edge of the screen if your other fellow hasn't moved or something.
How can you imagine the chaos of both trying to use the wing cap at the same time, old boy? It would be absolute balmy lunacy.
It would, yes. The game comes with a pair of boxing gloves as well for the, sort of fighting each other.
Yes, I think it does.
Why don't you move, you stupid man? What? I want to play Luigi. No, I want to play Mario. And you don't move.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Bertie. So, yes, anyway, there we are, fellas. VV Mario Land.
Yes.
Mario Takes America. Super Mario's Wacky Worlds. Super Mario Spikers and Super Mario 64 2. Our top 5 lost and forgotten Nintendo Mario games.
Never released.
Ever.
Never released.
Never ever again, I say. Thank you most kindly for joining us. I'm looking forward to seeing you once more the next exciting Mario-related outing,
We do.